Hello everyone, welcome to ShailajaIAS. Welcome to the PYQ Decoder class. This is Subash. Today we are continuing with the history. Today we are coming up with a new theme. In class 6 we are coming up with the modern Indian history and the important themes and micro topics where UPSC is asking questions from and where the UPSC examiner is setting the questions, and to understand the mind of the examiner we should be able to go through the PYQs. Now we'll see with respect to modern Indian history which are all the themes that are important in the next coming couple of classes. Chalo, we'll begin. So modern Indian history, it has playing a huge role in UPSC examination. Very recently, the questions that were coming from modern history were 4 to 5 from last 3 to 4 years. However, in the 2025 paper, in the previous paper, the question has been increased. The weightage has been 9 to 10 question. So do with the geography. Earlier during 2020, 21, 22, some 7 to 8 questions were coming from geography. However, around 15 to 20 questions are coming from geography. Same thing with the modern history. Now UPSC has ramped up the number of questions that has been coming from modern Indian history, which were 3-4 before year papers, but in the 2025, 9 questions came from modern Indian history. So it becomes very important to see where all the questions have come from, because those themes tends to repeat in the next coming 2026 prelims. So we'll see which are the important themes that has been asked in modern Indian history. So first important theme is socio-religious reforms and women's issue, women's educational rights, okay, marriage rights, conjugal rights, all this becomes dowry, okay, the colonial acts with respect to women becomes very important. We'll see on which are the micro topics questions have been asked. So the first question with respect to reform movement about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, okay, which of the following statement is correct? We'll see the question. He possessed great love and respect for the traditional philosophical systems of the East. Yes, he had a great respect for Upanishads. Okay, the monotheism of Upanishads. Obviously, he opposed, okay, idol worshipping, polytheism, but he respected the monotheism of Upanishads. If you have studied Raja Mohan Roy, you know that the first statement is correct. Second, he desired his countrymen to accept the rational and scientific approach and the principle of human dignity and social equality of men and women. Obviously, okay, he was a very rational man and he took the scientific approach. So did the Swami Vivekananda, to treat religion very rationally and logically, to search for truth in it, to search for truth through the principles of human dignity, social equality of both men and women, and very scientific and rational approach. Okay, that was done by Swami Vivekananda also. So both statements are correct here about Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Very easy question asked in 2025, my friends. With respect to reform movements, okay, there was Renaissance as well as Reformation, right? All the organizations with respect to Renaissance of our society, of our religion, as well as Reformation within our society becomes important. The important personalities, the movement, okay, what changes it brought, the books, okay, the literature with respect to it, the works with respect to this movement becomes very crucial for 2026 examination. So, he is known as father of Indian Renaissance. While advocating Western education and scientific rationalism, he studied Vedas deeply, okay, to prove Hindu monotheism, that is found in Upanishads or Vedanta, was compatible with reason, showing respect for purified Eastern traditions. Clear? Next, with respect to social movement, asked again in 2025, who among the following was the founder of self-respect movement? Straightforward question. who was the founder of self-respect movement? One mainly will ask in South India. Very important. Who was it? Periyar, E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. Right? In Madras. Okay, self-respect movement. Okay, in 1925 in Tamil Nadu, aimed at achieving society where backward castes have equal human rights and to uplift the lower castes in the society. So, self-respect movement was launched by Periyar, or he was also called E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, was also called Periyar. Clear? The temple entry movement of Kerala, right? That also is a noteworthy mention where question might come from. So all the important socio-reform movements, okay, their leaders are very important. Asked again in 25, my friends. 2 questions have come directly from socio-religious reformation and renaissance movement. Okay. Next, social movement over. Next, with respect to women's education, asked in 2021. Okay, who was associated as a secretary with the Hindu Female School, also called as Bethune School. Okay, Bethune Female School. Who was it? Annie Besant, Devendranath Tagore, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and Sarojini Naidu. Who was? Please answer in the comment section. It was option C, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Okay, it becomes very important. You need to know about options also. Theosophical Society, right? Annie Besant. Okay, and which league she started? Okay, then Devendranath Tagore, Sarojini Naidu. Okay, but the Hindu Female School was established here by 1849 by J.E.D. Bethune. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar served as its secretary. Okay, and was instrumental in the growth of women's education. He championed with women's education. Also in South, they championed for women widow remarriage. Who are the leaders? Please mention with respect to women's, okay, remarriage of widows. This also is a very important theme asked time and again in UPSC, my friends. So now we'll see the next question again with respect to Dalit literature, asked in 2020. The Vittal Vidwansak, the first monthly journal to have the untouchable people as its target audience, was published by Gopal Baba Walankar, Jyotiba Phule, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. What is the answer here? So if you have read, okay, with respect to Dalit literature, women literature, okay, these are all subaltern literature. Okay, subaltern literature that came to the fore during freedom struggle. Okay, these are very important literature work during the freedom movement that you must know, which are specific to women, Dalit, backward classes, peasants and tribals. So here the Vittal Vidwansak, the first monthly journal to have the untouchable people as the target audience, was published by, okay, all major Mahatma Gandhi ji, Jyotiba Phule and the Satyashodhak Samaj, okay, B.R. Ambedkar. You would have studied, if any new book comes and a new name comes, okay, and other people, prominent personalities, if you have not heard with respect to that book, then go with the option, with the new option which you have never heard before or you have not studied, because you would have studied Gandhi, his important books, Jyotiba Phule, important books, Ambedkar ji, his important books, but Gopal Baba Walankar you might have not studied, and Vittal Vidwansak, if you have never heard, linked to these 3 important personalities, you can go with the, okay, a freedom fighter who is not well known, the personality, but if you have studied, if you have core knowledge, go with the knowledge. Here, Gopal Baba Walankar, a pioneer of the Dalit movement in Maharashtra. If you see, okay, Ambedkar also is from Maharashtra. Jyotiba Phule also is in Pune, Maharashtra. So, it's very difficult to get the answer by seeing the options. But if you know famous personalities and their books, you can end up with the answer if it is a very new book. Published by Vittal Vidwansak, okay. destroyer of the Brahminical pollution. The concept of caste, okay, came as purity and pollution concept. No, he wanted to break up dismantle that caste barrier, so that he wrote Vital Vidwansak to highlight the plight of the untouchables and to uplift, okay, the Dalits. Clear? Now again with respect to women rights asked in 2020, my friends. In the context of Indian history, okay, the Rakhmabai case of 1884 revolved around Rakhmabai case, women's right to gain education, okay, age of consent. Consent is normally to marriage. Restitution of conjugal rights. In case of child marriage, conjugal rights will be given to the women. See, when you see Rakhmabai case, education is directly contradicting to statement 2 and statement 3, which is respect to the marriage and age of consent to the marriage. However, education is not matching with the next two statements. Here options are given. If pairs are given, I'll go with 2 pair, because two statements are dominating the 1 pair, which is the odd one out. This is the odd one out. If you have studied, go with the knowledge. If you have not studied, this is the odd one out. Why? This is speaking about education. Rest 2 of the statements are talking about marriage rights. Okay, age of consent. So option B, 2 and 3 are the right options here. The case of Rakhmabai case versus Dadaji Bikaji triggered a massive debate on age of consent and restitution of conjugal rights for the child brides, eventually leading to Age of Consent Act 1891. Later, Sharda Act came. So you need to know the important acts that were passed during the colonial period with respect to women, okay, mainly Dalits, education, okay, other important freedom movement bills that passed, for example, press, okay, also becomes important with respect to modern Indian history. Now, we'll see the next important theme, which is British expansion, their administrative policies. Just like Mughal administration, their policies, British administration, their important administrative policy, revenue policies, tax policies becomes important. We'll see. So, land revenue question came in 2024. Okay. With reference to revenue collection by Cornwallis. Okay, this question was dropped because of the Cornwallis linked with Rajaram settlement. But we'll see. Under the Rajaram settlement of revenue collection, the peasants were exempted from revenue payment in case of bad harvest or natural calamities. Okay. Next, under the permanent settlement in Bengal, if the zamindari failed to pay his revenue to the state on or before the fixed date, he would be removed from his zamindari. Yes, this statement was completely correct. And permanent settlement, Cornwallis introduced. However, Rayatwari settlement was not introduced by Cornwallis. So statement 1 is technically wrong. So UPSC dropped this question. But statement 2 is technically right, factually right also. And a permanent settlement, what they did, they fixed a lump sum amount of zamindari and a fixed zamindari amount, but it was so much, and if the farmers were not able to pay, and if zamindari were not able to pay to the British because farmer didn't pay, zamindari lost the traditional zamindari rights. There was a sunset fixed date clause. They can be removed if they didn't pay the zamindari to the British under permanent settlement. That's why permanent settlement was very cruel on the farmers. Rayatwari was by who? Not Lord Cornwallis. Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro. Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro were the two prominent people who brought Rayatwari settlement. Okay. The peasants were exempted from revenue payment in case of bad harvest or natural calamities. Not always. And this statement is technically wrong because Cornwallis didn't introduce Rayatwari settlement. But statement 2 is correct. Clear? What is important is the important revenue policies, taxation policies of British, their administration becomes important. Next, in 2022, with respect to European advent to the Indian subcontinent, the Dutch established their factories, warehouses on the east coast of land granted them to Gajapati rulers. Okay, again Dutch, when did they come? Linked with Gajapati rulers. Timeline, if you know, you can answer this question. Is it right? No, Gajapati rulers were not there. Okay, Dutch arrival, Gajapati fell before the Dutch arrival. Who were the Golconda rulers? Okay, the Bahmani Sultan broke and there were small kingdoms, and the Golcondas gave permission to the Dutch to establish factory in the east coast of India. Alfonso de Albuquerque captured Goa from Bijapur Sultanate. Correct? The English East India Company established a factory at Madras on a plot of land leased from a representative of Vijayanagara Empire. This is also factually correct. Okay, leased by Damarala Venkatadri Nayaka, was a representative of Vijayanagara Empire. That time Vijayanagara Empire was almost, okay, its glory days were over and it was ruling as a feudatory or a shadow of its own bigger kingdom. So statement 2 is correct, statement 3 is correct. However, statement 1 is wrong. Factually, it is Golconda rulers. So 2 pairs are 2 and 3 only. I hope this has been helpful to understand the theme. Okay, the European adventures linked with timeline. Who were the rulers? Who gave permission to establish which factory, which fort? Okay, that also becomes important. Next, again, East India Company factories in 22, Dutch in 21, East India Company factories have been asked. In the first quarter of 17th century, okay, that is 1600 to 1625, first quarter, right, of the 17th century, where were the English East India Company factory or factories located? Bharuch, Chikakole, or Andhra Pradesh, Srikakulam, Tiruchinapalli. So, answer. Tell me in the comment section. See, early 1600 when they came to the west coast. Okay, Surat, Bharuch, Ahmedabad, Agra, and in Odisha's Matsulipattanam, they set up their factories. So, except Bharuch, Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh is not. Tiruchinapalli also is wrong. They came much later, these factories. So, here only one pair or only first option is correct. So, timeline becomes important and all the events with respect to that timeline, the rulers, who were the kings, okay, where were the factories located in the early beginning of the century and later part of the British, Dutch, French becomes important. Okay, this was administration again. British administration asked in 2020. Wellesley established the Fort William College at Calcutta because he was asked by Board of Director at London to do so. Okay, very vague. He wanted to revive interest in Oriental learning. Okay, on this question has been asked. Okay, some British scholars wanted to study the Oriental literature. Okay, many archaeologists came. In 2023, archaeologist question came from this option. He wanted to provide William Carey and his associates with employment. Okay, again very vague. He wanted to train British civilians for administrative purposes in India. Okay, British administration linked with Fort William College. Okay, if you're able to link the theme that UPSC repeats and asks, you'll be able to get the answer. He was wanted to train the British civil servants for administrative purpose in India. Established in 1800, the college's primary purpose was to train British civil servants in Indian language, law, customs, and to assist in the efficient administration of the colonial India. Clear, my friends? So we'll go to next question. So, theme 2, British administration policies, revenue, taxation policies, okay, and timeline linked to their factories and who were the kings and where were their factories established. Geographical timeline becomes important. Now, in theme 3, we'll see the economic impact of British rule. Okay, on peasants, on tribals, on common class. Okay, we'll see what was the overall economic impact and which are the themes asked in UPSC. First one, industrialization, impact of industrial revolution, okay, of Britain on India during first half of 19th century. First half of 19th century is 1800s to 1850, right? When the industrial revolution started in Britain. What happened? India, okay, from exporter became net importer of the finished goods. Okay, finished goods, India became importer. And India became a colonial country where it just imported raw material to the Britain and it started exporting raw material to the Britain and started importing the finished goods from the Britain. So, the impact of industrial revolution on India during the first half of 19th century is Indian handicrafts were ruined. Yes. Machine introduced in textiles. No, not in India. Not at least in the earlier 18th, 17th century, 19th century, 1800s. Railway laid in many parts. No, it just began. Heavy duties on British imports. No, on Indian exports heavy duties were there and inverted duty structure was there where heavy duties were removed for British imports but for Indian exports duties were put. That's why it destroyed Indian handicrafts. Okay, Indian handicrafts were ruined. Industrial revolution in Britain led to cheap machine-made textile flooding India and deindustrialization process in Indian traditional handloom and handicraft industries. Thus, leading to Indian handicrafts getting ruined. Many people got impacted and deurbanization happened during those colonial period where they lost the job workers and they went back to from cities to villages. Now, again with respect to indigo trade, okay, one of the key cause of freedom movement started by Gandhiji also was due to indigo. Indigo cultivation in India declined by beginning of the 20th century, that is 1900s. Okay, beginning of the 20th century, indigo cultivation declined because peasant resistance to the oppressive conduct of planters, see link timeline always. Okay, its unprofitability in the world market because of new inventions. This happened, right? 1900s. The nationalist leaders' opposition to the cultivation of indigo. Government control over the planters. So if you know, link the timeline, okay, you know that it became unprofitable because synthetic dyes were invented. Synthetic dyes were invented in the beginning of the 20th century, which led to unprofitability of indigo because it requested lot of resources, men, material, but it would not be profitable based on the synthetic dyes that were available in the market. So, option B. Synthetic dyes in Europe, Germany at the end of 19th century made this natural indigo dyeing unviable. Clear? Now, we saw, okay, administration policies and we saw expansion, that geography, we saw the economical policies. Now we will see tribal and revolutionary movements during British colonial period and the questions based on that. With respect to revolutionaries, freedom fighters associated with Gaddar party was asked in 2022. Who are the freedom fighters associated with Gaddar party? Direct question. Barendra Kumar Ghosh? No. Yogesh Chandra Chatterjee? No. Ras Bihari Bose? Yes, he was there with Gaddar party. Barendra Kumar Ghosh? No. He was Jugantar, Bengal, right? Yugantar or Jugantar party. And Yogesh Chandra Chatterjee, he was Hindustan Republic Army, right? He was Anushilan Samiti or HRA, Hindustan Republican Army or Anushilan Samiti. Only Ras Bihari Bose is correct here. Gaddar party, okay? One of the important saga of revolutionary. So, answer will be only one. Sorry, only one pair, that is option 3. Third statement or only one pair is the correct answer here. Next, we'll see with respect to tribal revolt asked again in 2020. With reference to history of India, Ulgulan or the Great Tumult is described of which of the following events? Revolt of 1857, Mapilla Rebellion 1921 in Malabar, that also is very important. Indigo Revolt of 1859, okay, Sannyasi Revolt, Birsa Munda Revolt of 1899. That year it was in news, current affairs, and directly the question came with respect to Birsa Munda Rebellion. So, Ulgulan refers to Munda Rebellion led by Birsa Munda in Chota Nagpur region against the decodes, outsiders and the British agrarian policies. So, current affairs that year linked with historical, tribal, okay, revolt. So, this is how UPSC is linking current affairs with the historical events. Okay, any event, any tribal, okay, event that has been in the news becomes important with respect to history, So I hope this session has been helpful to decode which are the themes in the modern history. In the next class, again, we'll come up with the rest of the themes that have been asked in the modern Indian history. Till then, take care. See you in the next class.